All right, swing into action, everybody. Get ready for a deep dive with the always popular ring-tailed lemurs.
Always popular. I'd say iconic. Those black and white ring tails are instantly recognizable.
You got that right. And we're going to dive deeper than those rings with some awesome footage from Symbio Wildlife Park's YouTube channel. A keeper there, Jules, is showing off two of their resident lemurs,
Hmm.
Cassie Gee and Cassie Zinaka. So we all know lemurs are from Madagascar, which is, off the coast of Africa, but it's more than just a fun fact, right? Like, what's the big deal about Madagascar's isolation? How did that shape the lemurs we know and love?
Ah, Madagascar. It's like this incredible evolutionary playground, millions of years separated from the mainland. And without monkeys and apes around to, compete, the lemurs got to fill all these different ecological niches. That's why there are over 100 different lemur species. 100. Can you believe it?
Wow, over 100. That's mind-blowing. I guess they're not all just hanging out in the trees then, huh?
Nope. Take the ring-tailed lemur, for example. They're the most terrestrial of all the lemur species. So they spend a lot of their time on the ground foraging for food, which has really influenced their behavior
Yeah.
and even, their anatomy.
Seriously. That's wild. Okay, so let's break down some of those fascinating ways, like starting with their social structure, because I've always heard that they're female-dominated, which is pretty rare in the animal kingdom, right?
Oh, absolutely. Female dominated to the core. These ring-tailed lemurs, they live in troops, usually about 15 to 30 individuals. And get this, at the top of the hierarchy. A dominant female. She runs the show, makes all the decisions, calls the shots, leads the troop, a real matriarch.
Wait, hold on. A matriarch. That's not just that the girls are in charge.
You're picking up on it. It's about lineage, too. It's deeper than just girl power. The daughters, they stay with the troop their entire lives, and they inherit their mother's rank. But the sons, they got to leave around like 3 or 4 years old to find a new troop. So you have this really powerful line of females that shapes the whole social scene.
So if the daughters stick around, does that mean like they end up challenging their own moms for the top spot? Talk about family drama.
It can get intense. There's definitely tension when daughters mature. It's a constant power struggle, and researchers are still trying to understand all the subtle cues and dynamics at play.
Wow, wow. Okay, we got to talk about those tails now. I mean, the ring-tailed lemur, they're known for those iconic black and white rings, but is it all just for looks?
Oh, there's always more to it than meets the eye, especially in nature. That tail, it's like a Swiss Army knife of lemur adaptations.
Okay, I'm hooked. Tell me more. What's so special about those tails?
Well, remember how we said they're the most terrestrial? So imagine you're a lemur trekking through the Madagascar forest. It's easy to lose sight of your buddies and all that dense vegetation. So that tail, it acts as a big, bright flag, helps them stay together, follow each other.
That's so smart, like their own little communication system. But wouldn't a bright tail also make them easier for predators to spot?
Yeah, that's a great point, and it's something scientists have considered. But it seems like the benefits of sticking together outweigh the risks in this case. Safety in numbers, right?
Makes sense. Okay, so communication. Check. What else can that tail do?
Hold on tight, because this next bit is where it gets really fascinating. We're talking about stink fighting.
Stink fighting. You got to explain this one.
Okay, picture this. A male ring-tailed lemur wants to show who's boss, right? So he sits down, brings his tail up towards his chest, and starts rubbing it with scent glands on his wrists.
Hold up. They have scent glands on their wrists. Where else do they have these things?
You heard that right. Wrist glands, crucial for their communication. They produce this strong, musky odor unique to each individual. So the male, he gets his tail all perfumed up, then waves it right in his rival's face, often with some high-pitched vocalizations for good measure, just letting that scent waft over the competition.
Wow, it's like a perfume war. So the stink fighting, it's all about avoiding actual fights.
Exactly. It's a way for them to size each other up, establish dominance without resorting to violence. But don't underestimate those canine teeth that Jules mentioned. If the stink fight doesn't settle things, things can definitely escalate.
This is incredible. I never knew scent was so important in lemur life. Are those wrist glands on all lemurs, or is this another ringtail special?
This is where their primitive primate lineage comes into play.
Okay, back up. What do we mean by primitive primate again? Like they haven't figured out fire yet or something?
Not quite. But remember, lemurs branched off from the primate family tree way earlier than monkeys and apes. So they've held on to some ancestral traits that others have lost. And this strong reliance on scent, that's one of them.
So these wrist glands, this whole stink fighting thing, it's like a window into ancient primate communication.
It is. It gives us this fascinating glimpse into a sensory world that we humans can only imagine. While we're all about sight and sound, ring-tailed lemurs, they're experiencing their world through this rich tapestry of sense.
It's making me feel like we're missing out on a whole dimension of sensory experience.
It's a humbling thought,
Mm.
right? Just a reminder that our way of perceiving the world isn't the only way. There's so much more out there than we can see or hear.
Okay, before we get too lost in the world of lemur smells, let's talk about their intelligence. Jules definitely made it clear that there's more to these guys than just those cute looks.
Oh, absolutely. They're surprisingly clever. Problem solvers, learners, and socially intelligent too.
So it's not just instinct driving them, they're actually like thinking and adapting.
Exactly. Think about Kessie Gee and Cassie Zinaka eagerly coming for those treats. That wasn't random. They'd learned to associate those actions with a positive outcome. Cause and effect, that's a sign of some serious cognitive ability.
So they're actually learning from their interactions, even with humans. That's pretty impressive.
It is, and it brings up some important ethical questions about how we view and interact with these animals. Remember Jules saying they don't make good pets?
Yeah, he was serious about that. I got the feeling they'd much rather be in charge of their own lemur kingdom.
Absolutely. They might be adorable and intelligent, but their needs are complex. Their social structure, their scent communication, their natural behaviors. You can't just replicate that in a domestic setting.
So, as much as we might be smitten with their cuteness, it's important to respect their wildness.
Exactly. Appreciating them for who they are, not who we might want them to be. Their intelligence and adaptability are best observed and appreciated in their natural habitat.
That's a great point. Now, what about that tamarind tree that Jules mentioned? He said it makes up like half their diet in the wild. Why is that one tree so crucial?
The tamarind tree, it's like the heart of their ecosystem, a keystone species. And for ring-tailed lemurs, it's a dietary staple. When those tamarind trees are fruiting, those pods become their main food source, packed with nutrients and energy.
So they're not just eating whatever fruit looks good, they're actually dependent on this one specific tree.
It's their go-to supermarket. But they're opportunistic too, so they'll munch on leaves, flowers, other fruits, whatever's available.
This is incredible, but what happens if something threatens those tamarind trees?
Ah, that's the big question. And it shows how interconnected these ecosystems are. Deforestation, climate change, any disruption to the tamarind trees, it can have a ripple effect on the entire lemur population, like a domino effect.
One change can impact a whole species. That's a bit scary, to be honest.
It is. And it highlights how crucial conservation efforts are to protect these delicate habitats. The tamarind tree's fate is linked to the lemur's fate, and so many other species too.
Everything's connected, huh? We can't just focus on one species. Got to consider the whole picture.
Precisely. And that's the beauty of learning about these incredible creatures. They open our eyes to the complexity, the interconnectedness of the natural world, and hopefully inspire us to protect it.
Couldn't have said it better myself. I think it's time we let our listeners ponder the wonders of the lemur world for a bit. We'll be back soon with more from our ring-tailed deep dive. Stay tuned.
Can't wait.
All right, so we've got these wrist glands, stink fights. I mean, it's wild. But scent isn't just for competition, right?
You're right. It's woven into every aspect of their lives.
So what's the everyday scent story for these lemurs? Are they leaving, like, scent trails everywhere?
It's even more interesting than that. Remember those wrist spurs we were talking about?
Oh, yeah, I thought those were just like some weird lemur fashion statement.
Not at all. They use those furs to scratch trees and branches, leaving their scent behind.
So it's like a smelly signature.
Exactly. They're communicating their presence, their territory, even their social status. Think about it. In a dense forest, where it's hard to see very far, scent becomes super important.
Yeah, it's like a whole hidden world of communication. And I bet it gets even more complex with those chest glands, right?
Absolutely. The males, they have these scent glands on their chests too, adding another layer of information to the mix. They rub those glands on surfaces, leaving behind a scent that says, hey, this is my turf, or check out my amazing genes.
It's like they're painting the forest with scent. It makes me wonder, what does a lemur world actually smell like?
It's a symphony of smells, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it just shows how much more attuned they are to their environment than we are.
It makes our reliance on sight and sound seem kind of limited, huh?
It really does.
Oh.
It's a humbling reminder that there's so much more to the world than meets the human eye, or nose for that matter.
Okay, before we get totally lost in lemur smellscape, let's talk about their intelligence. Jules definitely hinted that they're more than just pretty faces.
Oh, he's right. Ring-tailed lemurs are incredibly smart. They can solve problems, learn from experience, And they've even got some impressive social intelligence.
So they're not just acting on instinct, they're actually, like, figuring things out.
Exactly. Remember how eager Kessie Gee and Cassie Zinaka were for those treats? They weren't just randomly hungry. They learned that certain behaviors lead to tasty rewards.
So they're making connections, learning from their interactions, even with humans. That's awesome.
It really is. And it raises some important questions about how we treat these animals. Remember how Jules was adamant that they don't make good pets?
Yeah, he wasn't messing around. They seem way too independent for that.
Exactly. As cute and clever as they are, their needs are just too complex for a typical home environment. Their social structure, that whole scent communication thing, their natural behaviors, you can't just recreate that in a living room.
Just as tempting as it might be to cuddle up with a lemur, we gotta respect their wildness.
Absolutely. Appreciate them for who they are, not who we might want them to be. Their intelligence shines brightest in their natural habitat, where they can truly thrive.
Great point. Now, remember that tamarind tree Jules mentioned?
Oh yeah, their favorite food?
He said it makes up like half their diet in the wild. Why is that one tree so important?
Well, the tamarind tree, it's like the VIP of their ecosystem, a real keystone species. And for the ring-tailed lemurs, it's their main source of food. When those tamarind trees start fruiting, those pods become like their main course, full of nutrients and energy.
So they're not just snacking on whatever fruit they find, they're actually dependent on this specific tree.
Pretty much. But they're adaptable too, so they'll munch on leaves, flowers, other fruits if they have to.
It's like their go-to grocery store. But what happens if something happens to those tamarind trees?
That's a worry, and it really highlights how connected everything is in these ecosystems. Deforestation, climate change, anything that disrupts those tamarind trees, it can have a domino effect on the whole lemur population.
Whoa, one change can impact a whole species. That's kind of scary.
It is a little scary, and it just shows how important it is to protect these fragile environments. The tamarind tree, the lemurs, and all the other species, their fates are intertwined.
Everything's connected, huh? We can't just focus on one thing in isolation. We have to think about the whole web of life.
Exactly. And that's one of the amazing things about learning about these creatures. They open our eyes to the complexity of nature, the interconnectedness, and hopefully inspire us to protect it all.
Wow, it's amazing, isn't it? Just taking a closer look at one species can teach us so much, not just about them, but about like the whole planet, even about ourselves.
It really is.
Yeah.
Jules and the whole team at Cindia Wildlife Park have given us a glimpse into, well, a really speckled corner of the primate world.
I'm with you on that. So what were some of the biggest surprises for you in all this? Like things that even surprised you as an expert on lemurs?
Hmm. I think it's got to be how much they rely on their sense of smell.
Hmm.
Like, we knew it was important, but those wrist spurs, the chest glands, that whole stink fighting ritual, it just shows you how much of their world revolves around scent. Makes you wonder what we're missing out on, you know?
Totally. Like imagine sniffing a tree and getting a detailed message from another lemur. Kessie G was here, not in the best mood. It's like a whole secret code we're just starting to understand.
Exactly. And then on top of that, you have this really unique social structure. The daughters inheriting their mother's rank, the males kind of like they're just passing through.
It's like a whole soap opera playing out in the Madagascar forest. And of course, we can't forget how much they depend on the tamarind tree if those trees disappear.
Oh yeah, the whole ecosystem could be in trouble. It shows how fragile these environments are. Even small changes can have a huge impact. It's a good reminder that conservation, well, it's not just about protecting individual species, it's about the whole habitat, the whole web of life.
So, as we wrap up our lemur deep dive, what's the one thing you really want our listeners to take away from all this?
Hmm. If I had to pick one thing, I'd say it's the importance of perspective, The ring-tailed lemur, with its female-led society, its scent-based communication, its reliance on that one tree, it challenges our ideas of what's normal in the animal kingdom. And it highlights how incredible the diversity of life on Earth really is.
Yeah, it's a good reminder that there are so many different ways to exist, to communicate, to thrive. And by understanding those different ways, we can learn so much about ourselves, about our planet, about how important it is to respect all the amazing life that's out there.
I couldn't have said it better myself. It's time to let our listeners ponder all the amazing things we've learned about lemurs.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep your senses open. You never know what amazing things you'll discover.
See you on the next Deep Dive.